My name is Tony Bates, and I spent over 50 years conducting research into the effectiveness of technology for teaching in higher education, with a particular interest in the use of video. In the first video in this series, it was pointed out that video was greatly underused in higher education teaching, with perhaps the exception of Zoom-type lectures. While Zoom is very good for communicating lectures, video can be used in many other ways for teaching and learning. In this video, I want to focus on what video is best used for in teaching and learning. This means focusing on what video can do that cannot easily be done in a face-to-face classroom, and how video can help student learning in unique ways. The technical term for this is the affordances of video. Now, what are these affordances? In my book, Teaching in a Digital Age, I've listed over 30. In this video, I'll provide examples of some of the most common from across a range of subject disciplines. In the previous video, we saw two affordances of video, namely, video is very good for representing and explaining dynamic change, and video is good for providing concrete examples of abstract principles through the use of graphics and animation or physical modelling. Let's add to these a fairly obvious one, and that is video is good for interpreting or analysing performance. In this next extract, we see an analysis of the work of the sculptor Barbara Hepworth in a rare exhibition of her work at the Tate Gallery, London.
In this room there are 4 sculptures that Hepworth made out of a tropical hardwood called guarilla, and there's a famous story that she was sent 17 tons of this wood out of the blue. And you see her, so she's got wood, she loved hard things, and this is particularly hard wood, and she talks about the battle to carve it. And you see her with these huge logs of a size she could never have dreamt of. I think with each one finding different ways of opening the wood up.
This is a work called Sphere Within a Form, and in it Barbara Hepworth is able to explore some of the ideas in which she, that had been dear to her throughout her career. So you can see the relation to the early works from the 1920s and 30s, where she would create a sort of mother and child figure, a larger kind of exterior form and a smaller form, which sort of goes with and relates to the sculpture in certain ways. And I think often people sort of read this work as something akin to sort of like a nut or an acorn, and that's kind of how she saw it herself as well. And it's one of a series of works in which she sort of takes the sort of forms and growths of nature and is able to kind of interpret those in three-dimensional sculpture.
Video can be very useful for bringing to students demonstration of activities and analysis by specialists in their field that may otherwise be difficult or impossible for you to provide because of location or timing. This affordance can apply equally to works of art, theatrical or musical performance, or even to providing students with best examples in teaching practice, nursing, or manual skills such as welding. Another very common affordance of video is to provide experiences that are difficult or impossible for students to observe in a classroom or institutional laboratory for a variety of reasons, such as it being too dangerous. To illustrate this point, let's take a look at this example in chemistry made by Martin Polyakov and his team at the University of Nottingham in England.
And many of you will know that if you drop sodium into water, it reacts almost explosively.
Okay, so we've got a lump of sodium, and you can see it's really nice and shiny. Okay, so we're going to put that into that big bucket of water and see what the chemical reaction is. Okay, so here we go. So you can see the orange sodium spectrum as the sodium is getting excited as the hydrogen's burning, all that heat. Whoa, exciting. That's brilliant.
That's much better one.
So, sodium and water. Excellent reaction. That was great.
Now, this would be a risky experiment to do with students standing around, as you'll see, but you also would need to explain why the chemical reaction between sodium and water in the video is so explosive. A similar affordance is the ability of video to access or record resources that are scarce or of limited availability. To illustrate this point, we can take an example from the study of human anatomy. Human brains are scarce and once dissected cannot be used again. In the following example, Professor Claudio Krebs of the University of British Columbia uses video to dissect and analyse the functions of a human brain.
Now, let's look at these component parts of the brain. This is the forebrain, which is composed of the cerebral hemispheres and deep structures. The right and left hemispheres are roughly symmetrical and are connected through corpus callosum, which you can see here. Here, we have cut the brain in half, separating the two hemispheres from each other. This is the cut surface of corpus callosum, the largest white matter tract in the brain. Impressively, it consists of an estimated 200 to 250 million projections. This structure here is the thalamus, and together with the hypothalamus here and the subthalamus, which you cannot see, it makes up the diencephalon. The cerebral hemispheres and the diencephalon together comprise the forebrain.
This clip is taken from a series of videos on the anatomy of the human brain, which are freely available online. I interviewed Professor Krebs and asked her why and how she made these videos. I think you'll find this interview extremely interesting. You will find this in a later video in this series. Research indicates that students who struggle with abstract concepts benefit considerably from seeing concrete examples of abstract concepts. In the following example from the British Open University, note how John Mason uses the soundtrack to explain the formula and how the video provides concrete examples of each of the expressions.
Now, whenever possible, I like to be able to get a picture of what's going on. And for squares, that's easy. Use a square. This square has sides a plus b by a plus b. It's made up of 4 pieces, each one of which is formed by choosing either an a or a b in this direction and either an a or a b in this direction. For example, a by a, b by a by b, and b by b, which adds up to a total of a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Well, that's the square. How about the cube? The name gives it away. Use a cube and compute volumes. Here is such a cube. It has sides a plus b, and a plus b. And as you can see, it comes apart into little pieces. Each one is formed by choosing either a or b in the 3 directions. This one is b by a. Let's store that over here. Now there's another piece at the back here which is exactly the same shape. So I'll put it in the same place. And on the top here, there's another one like those, but I'm not sure where it is at the moment. Here's a bigger piece which is a by b by a by b by a. Let's see, there's the little b cubed. We'll get rid of that one immediately. Now there are 2 more big ones here. The same volume. Here's the missing one. and finally a cubed, which all added up gives me a cubed plus 3a squared b plus 3ab squared plus b cubed.
John Mason is also interviewed in a later video in this series about making this and other videos. In the interview, he explains why video can be so helpful in enabling students to develop a deeper comprehension of mathematical concepts. Our next affordance of video shows how it can be used to synthesize a wide range of variables to suggest how real-world problems can be resolved and also to motivate students to action. This is a short extract from a 15-minute video from the United Nations on climate change, arguing that it is still possible to limit the worst effects of climate change.
Throughout the economy, people are working on improving current technology to lower emissions. We're rapidly replacing old incandescent light bulbs with LEDs that are 10 times more efficient. In 2020, about 7 out of 10 new cars in Norway were electric or hybrid. In 2021, it was already 8 out of 10. And the list goes on, from electric heating and better insulation to ships traveling at half speed to save fuel. Wherever you look, you find scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs trying to solve some aspect of climate change. Enormous amounts of human ingenuity are being brought to bear on this problem, with more and more people deciding to prioritize preventing rapid climate change. Solutions for low-carbon production of cement, electronics and steel, and innovations like artificial meat and carbon capture are in the works. The more of these technologies we deploy, the cheaper new and better technology gets. The cheaper they get, the more people use them, and so on. We can see the impact already. The domestic CO2 output of rich countries is falling without a major recession. Since the year 2000, the EU as a whole shows a 21% decrease, Italy 28%, the UK 35%, Denmark 43%. But the best news may be that emissions are no longer necessarily coupled with economic growth. In the past, this was an inconvenient truth. To get richer, you had to emit more, which led to fierce arguments between developing and developed countries about the fairness of reducing emissions while their populations were still poor. But in the last decade, we've seen that it is possible to increase prosperity without increasing emissions. Emissions in the Czech Republic dropped 13%, while their GDP grew by 27%. France reduced their CO2 emissions by 14%, while increasing GDP by 15%. Romania saw an 8% decrease and 35% growth. And even the largest economy on Earth, the USA, decreased emissions by 4% while growing their GDP by 26%. Some of you may call this a numbers trick, that rich countries are just exporting emissions to poorer nations by moving the dirty parts of their economies like manufacturing. But even when we account for all of our imported goods, the numbers still look positive. It's no longer a matter of having to choose between prosperity and the climate, as it seemed to be a decade ago. Developing countries will profit from that because as rich countries pay for the expensive development of green technologies, they can adopt them more cheaply. They can skip most of the high emission phase that today's rich countries went through. We are at the point where not decarbonizing is a bad business decision.
This example illustrates several affordances or benefits of video. The audio offers the analysis or abstractions, while the video image gives concrete images to support the analysis. Secondly, video can carry a strong affective or emotional impact for learning. This video is attempting to motivate and engage the learner into taking action. Video can take a complex argument and compress it into a short time. This allows or often requires follow-up discussion with the class. Again, these are general principles about the benefits of video that can apply to a wide range of topics. Video contains many techniques that can be helpful in teaching, which demonstrate changes over time through the use of animation, slow motion, or speeded up video. Using such techniques enable complex processes to be either directly observed or demonstrated by analogies more familiar to students. Here's an example from genetics, explaining mitosis, as demonstrated by Professor Rosemary Redfield at the University of British Columbia. Note that there is no commentary from an instructor on this clip. The student is expected to work out what's happening from their previous work on this topic. In a later video in this series, I interview Professor Redfield, where she explains how students made use of these videos. Again, I think you'll find this interview very interesting because again, it illustrates how the video has really helped students in this particular subject area. Video can also be used to help students develop and practice skills, and this leads us to two more affordances. Video can be used to demonstrate decision-making processes or decisions in action, and it can be used to provide opportunities for student decision-making and feedback on their decisions. Instructors at Toronto Metropolitan University, George Brown College and Centennial College, all in the Toronto area, collaborated to produce a series of videos for training students to do difficult home visits. They used actors to simulate scenarios. The video would stop and students would have to make a decision. Depending on their decision, the video would show the likely outcome of such a decision. Let's see what this looks like to the student.
Who is it? What do you want?
How to introduce yourself to the client. 3 options. Refer to arranged appointment. Express concern for client. Refer to mental health assessment. You have chosen. Refer to arranged appointment.
Hi, I'm Ann Jones, a community nurse. I'm here for the appointment we arranged yesterday.
Okay, please come in.
Hello. As I said at the door, my name is Ann Jones. I'm a nurse who visits families in the community. We offer many services in this community for young families. You might be interested in these.
Okay, would you like to sit down?
Where do you choose to sit? 4 options. Remain standing. Offer to sit at the table. Ask where to sit. Offer to sit down on their couch. You have chosen offer to sit at the table.
Let's sit at the table.
Okay.
Here's my card. Oh, look at those bruises.
Who is she and what is she doing here?
How do you respond to an unexpected person? 4 options.
If students had chosen a different response, they would have seen a different video outcome. We interviewed 2 of the instructors for a later video in this series, which again provides insight into how and why the instructors made these videos and how they affected student learning. The main ingredient for the successful use of video in your teaching is basically your imagination and your depth of understanding of the subject matter, so you can find a unique way to help your students, especially with difficult concepts or procedures. This means thinking about the affordances of video, what it can do that is difficult or impossible in the classroom, but would help students' learning. Our hope is that the affordances and examples included in this series will inspire you to increase your use of pre-existing video in your teaching so your students and you can benefit. The next videos in this series explore making your own videos in different subject disciplines, again to exploit the unique benefits of video. These provide the instructors' perspectives on making their own videos and include insightful interviews on how and why they went about their work. Lastly, our final video looks at 3 different ways of making videos in a studio setting and was made separately from this series but is related. So even if you are unsure about making your own videos, we hope you will take a look at these other videos in the series as they may inspire you to try. In the meantime, there is now more than enough existing video available for free educational use over the internet to fit almost all subject matter requirements. So I wish you every success in your use of video to move minds. For more on the research that underlies these videos and for more examples of the affordances, see Chapter 8.4 of Teaching in a Digital Age. This is a free, open access online textbook for instructors.